Hey there, Charlie Crawford. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have one of my good friends. We're going to learn a lot today about team roping. We're going to learn a lot today about making runs in a very short amount of time. We're going to learn a lot about what hard work looks like, perseverance. This is one of my good friends, one of my practice sparring partners, Luke Brown. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Man, thanks for coming on. I'm really looking forward to this. I know so much about your career and the path that you've chosen and the path that you've taken to get to where you're at. It's funny, we've taken a lot of the same paths, but they're from opposite sides of the country. You know, where I grew up in Oregon on one side of the United States and you from the South Carolina, and it was fun. There's a lot that we related to, but man, I couldn't be more proud of your career. 14 NFRs in the heading from 2008 to 2020, 13 straight. Like, that's hard to do. And then 3 NFR titles. That's even harder to do. That is a hard title to win. And from 2009, I thought you really hit a pretty good stride where you won second in the average, second in the world. And then in 2010, you won the average, won third in the world. Then come back in 2013, won the average, second in the world. 2015, won the average, less than $3,000 from a world title. And then reserve world champion again in 2020, 4-time reserve world champion. And not only when you got to the NFR were you a threat in the rounds, but also a threat in the average. That's also another thing that's hard to do, just how well-rounded your roping was. An American champion, won the American. That one's not easy to win. But man, you're going to be past probably $3 million this year with the rope. Man, that's incredible. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of it. It's amazing watching where you've come, and you won almost $3 million with a rope.
4 reserved. I didn't know that. That's depressing. I had 4 chances to win it.
What's funny about that is I look at it, and we were sparring kind of around the same time, and I'm like, I wanted to go in a dark room and just whip my own ass. I'm like, golly, look how much more he did with his chances than I did with my 10 times. It's incredible. Like, I loved it.
Well, man, I didn't know that. I remember the 2009 one. That one.
We'll talk about that one later for sure. Yeah.
That was a heartbreaker.
But come back. What was so cool to come back, but the one thing I want to jump right into here is just that little span from 2020 to 2023. Those were tough times, because anytime you get to where, I know when I did, like when you get used to making it and then you don't, those are tough. Like 2021 ended up 17th in the world by not much, making the NFR after 13 straight. Well, tell me what that was like.
I don't know. I really wasn't that upset at the time when we left San Bernardino, headed home. It's over. It was about $1,000 that I missed it by. Kind of felt like almost like I deserved not to make it. Didn't rope good. I won second at the American that year, and it counted, so I had a $25,000 hit before the season hardly even started. I mean, I was in the top 15 all the way till maybe the last week. I mean, or a couple weeks anyway. So didn't rope good. Just kind of fighting a lot of things and with my roping, and was good with it until the first round of the NFR. And then I sold up, would not watch it. I have not ever watched the 21 NFR and won't ever. I was the biggest baby ever. My family's in one room watching NFR, cheering all our friends on, and I'm in the back room back there watching Netflix, mattering a horn. That's true.
I've been there.
Yeah, but 10 days later it was over.
Right. Here comes Odessa.
Yeah.
So in 2022, is that when you started rope with Hunter Cook?
No, I wrote I wrote with him in 21.
You did rope with 21?
Yeah. We started right after California was over. I had wrote with Petska the winter, and then he went up north, didn't rodeo, started with Hunter.
And so in 2022, that one was tough because you guys you were 32nd in the world in 2023 or 2022. And those are hard because, you didn't make it with him in 21 and then the whole year in 2022. But there had to be something that you've seen in Hunter. There was something that, because most people, when they end up going in a spot that they haven't been in a long time, dropping that many ranks and having that tough of a year, usually there's a partner swap. You guys didn't. You guys stuck it out. What was it that made you guys stick it out into 2023?
I never really felt like it was ever my partner's fault. I've always felt like that if I didn't win, it was my fault. And everybody's gonna make mistakes, and Hunter's a lot like that too. He's a lot like me in a lot of ways. He is very independent with his roping. He never blamed me for one mistake or vice versa. But we practiced so hard. We worked at it a whole different way than I've ever worked at roping in my life. And he was there every day 30 minutes early, and he's got more heart and try and will, and he will be great. I mean, I think he will be one of the legends when he's done. I mean, I got that much faith in him and still do. And I know what we went through and how hard we tried and things we changed weekly. Probably went way overboard with it, trying to revamp the whole deal. And probably some of the funnest times of my life looking back on it, like us going through what we went through to end it the way we did. It was worth every bit of it.
Hunter was one of the kids that I remembered kind of at the end of my career that I remembered because great attitude. Mm-hmm. He was always the same. He might miss one. He looked just like the same as if he won the rodeo. Had a great attitude, great work ethic. It seemed like from the outside looking in. Healed fast, which I'm a huge fan of. But I just loved his character. I loved how he presented. He was just such a good dude. And then that's what was cool about that is then when you guys end up persevered through that. And then last year, 2023, you're back. You know, you end up being fifth in the world. You won second in the average. You won over 162,000 in the NFR and $260,000 regular season in 2023 in the PRCA. That's a great year.
Yeah, it was good. And like I said, the crazy thing about looking back on last year was we did rope quite a bit better. And
what do you think changed from 22 to 23? What do you think it was that changed, do you think?
I think what we had worked on, and change is not easy, and I don't care, especially for me, but we worked so hard at changing. He changed a lot of stuff he did, and he was so. When he was young, he was talented. He was very successful at a very early age because of his try. You know, he jumped numbers in weeks, you know, just so good. But to break it down and start being a little more methodical about it, we both were probably on the same avenue, kind of. So it finally started coming together, and we finally started being able to put runs together. And I'm telling you, we were so close. We made every short round all year. I mean, we made the Final Four at Calgary. We made the Final Four at Puyallup, Final Four at Sioux Falls. We made the short round at Austin. Every big rodeo, just about. I mean, 75% of the big money we were there for. But we never capitalized. You know, one hit somewhere. We won Calgary or any of them big rodeos, we would have been top 10. We won two of them, we would have been top 7 or 8 going in. You know, we were close, but we always got money. We got money almost every week. And that's what we set out to do, man. We were both hard-headed enough we were going to prove it. And I always told him, if they let us in that building, we paid our dues. We're due. So with the confidence of just, we practiced hard. Bobby Joe sent us so many steers and just for the finals, and we practiced the right way. And horses, we had great horses, and confidence was huge going in. And had kind of a crappy steer on the first one, got a leg. Had another one that got a leg, and not one time did we ever think we were done. It was, you know, like it was a good feeling. Like
stayed the course.
It's coming, man. It's coming, and it worked out. So,
which explained kind of like from 2021 to 22 to 23, your guys' journey. You guys stayed the course.
We stayed the course, and like I said, it was. I wouldn't change a thing, man. It was good to go through it with him. He worked with me on it, and I stay hooked with him on it, and he's very easy to talk to. Mm-hmm. We both were. When you walked in the arena or you got in that truck and you started talking, your feelings stayed outside, and you tried to learn from whatever somebody was saying. Half of it made sense. The other half of it probably didn't work. You know, you just ciphered out yourself. But yeah, it was good. I remember when Logan and I was roping in 2019. Like I wasn't sure if this was not it for me. You know, I probably roped worse in 2019. Realistically, because I was trying to learn how to be faster. There's a few things I was changing on my delivery, trying to learn how to throw toward the steer, not away from the steer, you know, at old right to left. And, you know, just those little things, but I was having at an older age, and, you know, it's hard to change them old habits, even though I know it needs change. It's a hard change to make. And I remember telling Logan, I think we were driving back from Pendleton, and I think I missed to come back in the short round real good. And I told him, I said, look, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, man, I even got my insurance adjusting license while I was in Pendleton, because I mean I wasn't roping very good. I didn't know if that was it.
And he told me, he says, I told him, I said, look, man, if you can find someone else better rope with next year, like go ahead and do it. I totally understand. I said, man, I should have roped way better this year. I didn't even rope good enough this year in 2019 to make the NFR. And I know I didn't. That's hard. That's one thing to miss it. And then, man, I roped good enough, just didn't work. But like, I did not rope good enough. And he was like, he looked at me and says, we're a team. He says, we're going to make it next year. He says, you got plenty left in the tank. And he says, we're partners and we're going to make it. And that little fire that he lit up under my ass right then and there, I was like, no, that's what a partner.
That's a partner.
Feels like. And that was one of those things where Logan did a great job of leading from behind because he is the healer. We lead the run, but he did a good job of leading from behind, keeping the camaraderie great in the rig. I'm here to practice whenever you're ready. What are we going to practice? We had a plan, and that did help so much. And it's so cool to see in this new generation where between Hunter and Logan, you're seeing that more often now than them kids coming up now that have a little bit better mindset where it's not all about them. And it's fun to see because their careers they'll last as long as they want to.
Oh yeah, no, it's for sure. That's another one that's a phenomenal person. He is. And I've got to know him this year too, and I couldn't agree more. They'll be able to do it as long as they want.
Mm-hmm. It was funny yesterday. I seen the Hunter cook, and we went and ate lunch, and I run into him and talked to him for a little bit. He's like, "How in the heck did you get Luke Brown on a podcast?" I said, "Man, I can't tell you how excited I am about this because I want to talk about your story. Like I love it. Like you came from, I can't say like kids." Hard work. Everyone hears it. But then there's Luke Brown hard work. And then there's people who say they love to rope. But they're like, if anyone's roped long enough or been on the top level, they're like, well, there's loving to rope. But then is it Luke Brown loving to rope? Like, do you love to rope like Luke Brown? But man, I'd love to hear like where you come from Rock Hill, South Carolina. When you started roping, how'd you guys get to the ropings? When did you get started? What made you love roping? What was your journey like coming from Rock Hill, South Carolina, coming from back east to coming out west?
Well, my dad, he always had horses and rode horses and stuff. And some of the neighbors had joined a roping club 15, 20 minutes away and talked him into going. So he loaded his horse up with him one day and went. And then that just kind of escalated till I went a couple weeks later. And we had ponies and stuff. And then we would go on Sundays and Wednesdays to the club. There was 10 or so people in it. They would lease Holsteins from the dairy next door, and they had a set of those strap-on horns. And for
plastic horns.
Yeah,
we had those too.
For probably 3 or 4 years, that was all we roped. And
they called them domestics back then.
Yeah, and we did that or whatever for a little while, and then ended up building an arena at the house and got our own Holsteins from our own dairy. And we did that for a little while, but I can remember my grandpa had a few cows, and when he was an old Army vet, and so before the sun would go down, he'd go to bed, and he did not let me roping his cows. He had a set of Herefords, and we would slip off in the pasture until dark and little stuff like that. I don't know what I've always loved to rope. It's just. I don't know what it is about it, but didn't like doing anything else but roping. Just self-taught. Golly, there's no telling what a mental case I'd be now if I was growing up in this age with all this social media stuff and
the technology.
I mean, we didn't have nothing. I had the Leo Camarello book. That was it.
I remember I watched that Smarty documentary they did on you. It was a great documentary with a picture of you falling asleep with that book on your chest.
Yeah, that was all we had, and we just. Me and my dad roped it. Last night, it's funny. My dad cooks on Sundays, and Bob Masters come over, and I sit there and listen to them talk for a couple hours. And
that's 2 hours of an episode of Grumpy Old Men. The humor on that is the same, and the stories
awesome.
It's just you can't. Yeah, they really could be a reality show of how hilarious those two are together.
I remember it now, but I forgot. But Daddy was telling Bob that when he said, I know Luke wasn't older than 13, and we left Clayton, Georgia, headed to Winston-Salem. It's about 4 or 5 hours driving, and we were going to a roping the next morning, and I got halfway there, and I was give out, and I said, you think you can drive? And I said, yeah, I can drive. He said, well, when you get to Winston-Salem, you wake me up. He said, and I woke up and we were in 5 lanes of traffic and I'm in the middle of it, just getting it 13 years old. I mean, that was my dad. We were more best friends than we were father and son. He ain't never got mad at me a day in my life, I don't think. It was all the mistakes I've made, but
there was not a bigger fan of Luke Brown than Big Luke, and never a dull moment around Big Luke.
Never.
Big Luke is a huge personality, a huge character, and yes, he lightens up a room every time he shows up. You can't be miserable around that guy. He's always going to have a good time.
Yeah, no, but it was fun.
How did you get to one place to the next? I heard some great stories about you guys just load them up and pack them in. And
well, my grandpa had a 60-something Chevrolet truck with sideboards on it. Him and my dad had made the haul cows to sell. You know, they had a load and shoot, little loading dock. When we started this roping club deal, Daddy would back the truck up in the ditch and he'd load my brother's pony so it had side planks on it. And then when you load the horses in the back of it off the ditch, then you'd put the gate up top.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they were just in the back of the truck. And when we get to the roping club, he'd find another ditch. He'd back in the ditch and we'd unload them. And we did that for a couple of years, every Sunday and Wednesday. My brother's pony on the front next to the cab, and then my pony and his horse. And we used to think it's so cool because when you go under the underpass, they duck, you know. And we did that for a couple of years, and then he bought a trailer. And the first horse trailer he bought, it was they had used it as an electrician trailer. It was kind of like a utility trailer, had no vents. And we gutted it out, took all them boxes out of it, and we'd load them up. And boy, when you get there, they'd be hot.
They were warmed up already.
We didn't know no different. Didn't care.
So you guys had to make sure when you guys got to a rope and a rodeo that they had a ditch somewhere so you could unload them.
Yeah, we did that for a little bit. It was fun, priceless. And then I high school rodeoed a little bit. And
so what are your guys' arenas like growing up?
Well, the first arena we built, we didn't have no chute, so Daddy built a door out of wood, and my mom and it had a little latch on it, and I'd nod or he'd nod, and
I heard Miss Debbie, she'd just be out there just opening up that.
She'd flip that latch and open the door, and there we go.
Had to hurry up before the next one came in.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
So you had a pretty good idea of Pendleton before you even got to Pendleton.
Yeah, I had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea.
And just loved it.
Just loved every bit of it.
That's awesome. I remember when I grew up, we called it the Rhino Pen. We had 2 steer wrestlers coming over, and they built a pen. They welded it all together, but they built it so they could steer wrestle out of it. So you can imagine how big this thing was. So we had to put like tires in the middle of it, and then my stepmom, she'd come out every night after work and shoot for us till dark, and she'd open that big old thing and close it. And the back gate was so heavy, she had a nylon rope, but she tied a little loop around it, and then she would jump off the top of that rhino pen and pull that back chute up, and then that hook, you'd put it on a nail and then go get the steer in there and try to hurry up and get it back down before the next one came in. And yeah, not quite like the Preferred automatics they have nowadays. It's fun to hear about kind of how things was. And it wasn't that long ago, really.
No, it really wasn't. That I was a junior in high school, and I wanted a bulldog, dead set on it. So Sunday afternoon here, me and my dad and my mom go to the arena, and we had 4 Longhorns, and he had a head horse, or he had a hill horse, and I had a head horse. And this little hill horse he had was old. She had to be 25, I don't know. But I get on there, and I go by. I would run her by. We had no clue what we were doing. None. We were just going to go bulldog, me and him. So I run her by some and don't get off. And then he's going to do it, and he don't get it. We run him, I don't know, 4 or 5 times through trying to figure out how to. He had me so mad. He finally had me so mad. I'll never forget. By the steers are trotting, she's trotting, he's trotting. Everybody's wore out, and I jump. And when I jump, I wipe out. Nose broke, blood everywhere. And he gets off and he makes sure I'm okay. And that was my beginning of my bulldogging career.
There's nothing like that first one you jump, because everything in your body is trying to keep you alive, and you're trying to convince it, no, it's going to be okay. Yeah. And that's usually that first one, broken leg, collarbone, nose. Something usually breaks on that first one, and then it gets a little easier after that.
Yeah, it was fun.
I remember that first one too. And then, so what when you guys got your horses back then, like, where'd you guys get your horses? Like, did you make them yourself? Did you look around? Did you call around? Because, like, it's not like Facebook back then, when a guy was looking for horses. You can't just look on Facebook. So how did you guys recruit your horse herd?
Well, there was a horse sale that was once a week, every week, and Daddy would just go down there and buy one. I mean,
They rope horses?
No.
Just horses?
We just start roping on them, yeah, just horses. But they were usually, they were broke enough or something, but we didn't know no different. We just, and really, they all worked. They all worked out. It wasn't, we didn't know what we were doing and we didn't care. We were just going to rope and they taught themselves we just chased cows, just rope. And we had some pretty good ones growing up. We always had something. He did a job one day for a horse. The first real head horse I had, he went and did a job one day for a guy, and the guy gave him the horse. The best horse that I may have ever had, a guy gave him to me to ride, and then would never take him back. It's little stuff like that. Like horses they were plentiful. It wasn't near. You didn't need near the athlete. So, but yeah, we just get them at the sale barn. Or somebody give them,
Yeah. I remember that was the exact same route we went. We every once in a while find a ranch horse, and we've had a few of them too. They just gave to us because somebody wanted to be a cowboy and realized there was more to it than what they thought. And it's like, I don't even want this sucker no more. And we'd have some of those and we just make it work. And like I say, it wasn't like they had to be the athlete that they are now, but it was transportation, and you're getting runs and getting reps and growing.
Looking back on it, it is today you spend more time riding than you do roping. Well, I don't know that it wasn't better back then. You didn't make it a big deal to them. Just you wasn't mean to them. You wasn't fussing at them all the time. You were just letting them roping. They like to run too. Just I wasn't picking on them. Had bits hanging halfway out their mouth and a nylon tie down that didn't work. And it was just saddle might not be tight.
We didn't even think about it too, because I remember one time we got a horse. We roped on it for a week. And it was on spring break, and then in Canby, Oregon, like on spring break for the weather to be good, it's not common. And for whatever reason, the weather stayed good. Dad and I roped outside for 1 week outside and trained a horse, and then took it to Mustangers up there at Pendleton and trained it for a week. That was it. It'd been branded on it and been gathered a cow, but literally, we didn't know no better either. After a week, just loaded up, took it to jackpot, and won something on her.
Yeah.
And like you say, didn't pick on, didn't know no different, just went and roped on him.
Yeah. And Daddy's the same way now. Like he get a horse and you think, oh Lord, where'd you get this thing? And a few months goes by and you're like, can I ride your horse? He's awesome. He has never changed with it.
Yeah.
And he might have the same brattle he had then. It's just a brattle, so.
So you went through the high school ranks and then graduated from the high school ranks and to the IRA. Is that IPRA? Is that what it is out there?
Yeah. Well, I went to college for a year and a half in Texas.
Oh, you came out here before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with some buddies from back home. And
where'd you go to college?
Howard, Big Springs.
Okay.
And
so you found out how the wind blows.
Yeah.
You went from one extreme to the other, to big trees, tall grass, to no trees, no grass, and solid wind.
Yeah. But it was good because that was an eye-opener of which I had seen it at the high school finals, how good the other kids was, and then to come out here and I did win some while I was out here. It wasn't like it was a total loss, but I was ready to get home. I missed home, and it is hard for a lot. It's easier now because there's more of us out here from back there, but back then you were, just one or two of you, or three of you maybe from back there, and everybody was ready. There's only been a few people that actually come to school and made it. Most people just get to go to Texas. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
But now it's not. There's a lot of people that live here from back over there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
Yeah, I bet there in Stephenville, there's probably more people that don't live here or from here than. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I IRA'd for a little while. And
so went back home and started IRAing?
Yeah, and got to do that for a little bit. And then I wanted to go pro rodeoing and pretty much just left home and never went back.
So I think we bought our car maybe the same time, 98.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my rookie year.
When I went back home after college, Tom Bourne had called, which he was one of the 2 or 3 best healers to ever come from over there. He had called and said something about it. So I traded my heel horse. I had a heel horse for a head horse with the neighbor and went to his house in Georgia and we roped for a day or two. And our first rodeo was Fort Smith. And I had been to one other pro rodeo before that. When I bought my card, I went to, or maybe 2 in Florida and healed for Jason Tucker, which is Jackson Tucker's dad. But actually Fort Smith was my first time I'd ever headed at a pro rodeo. And I don't know how. It was all black and don't even remember it today. But we 40% of Fort Smith
The 200 back then.
Yes. And life was never going to be bad. It was it. And so anyway, wrote with him for a little while. Then I wrote with Brad Culpepper for a little while. Went to some rodeos and stuff.
And those were the guys back east, weren't they?
They were the main.
Because Tom made it a few times.
Yeah.
Kevin Stewart, maybe. Forgot who all he made. Did he rope with Joe Beaver?
Joe Beaver, yeah.
I remember he made it a few times. Made a good big name for himself down there. Then Brad's a legend.
Yeah.
Brad's one of the legends from over there for sure.
Yeah. Brad taught me a lot about.
He's got a lot of knowledge.
He does. But I'll never forget, I was roping bad, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I had roped so much that I could catch some, but I was stepping off in a whole new territory headed south. Alabama, Georgia. Oh, man, there was some guys, Richard Traylor and the Ladners. And
Traylor, that was man from Snowy River, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank Graves.
Yeah.
I mean, they were ranked and unbeatable. I mean.
I remember when I first started seeing some of you guys from back east was at the George Strait down there in Bernie, when George Strait used to have those iconic ropings down there, and Richard Traylor showed up. And they call a man from Snowy River on that buckskin and have a swing off and throw at the line. And I'd never seen that before in my life.
2 coils, big
and
loop,
hook them
every time.
I was like, "What in the heck are y'all doing down there?"
There were some guys that was ranked. Now, I mean, but I remember Brad telling me. I mean, he roped for a living, has his whole life, and he would, he said, "I have to win 1,000." Say it was 1,000 a week to pay my bills. Like that. That's how we survive. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. We got to win." And so that was kind of the eye opener of if I'm gonna do this for a living, then I got to figure out a way. I got to win X amount of dollars a week, or this is never going anywhere. And that's always stuck with me. And my whole career is, no matter what you do, you got to get your fees back at least every week. And then when you do good, you can get ahead. And that was kind of the foundation of trying to learn how to make a living.
When I first started seeing a lot of y'all coming from back east and headed out west, because I was spoiled. I came out there. I mean, Canby was my hometown rodeo. St. Paul was right in my backyard. Rodeos like Hermiston, Pendleton, Ellensburg. We had some great rodeos up there. So I would get to see the top guys a lot, and I get a real good first experience was like get your butt whipped by the best in the world. But then when you'd win, you're like, oh man, I wonder if I got what it takes, because you're kind of least around them. And when you guys would come out from back east, like you, Frank Graves, when I was first seeing the man Snowy River, y'all were hungry. Like what I had heard, I think Brad Culpepper and I, we rode together one time to a rodeo, and he was telling me, so man, if you ain't almost in them first, second, third type placings when you go to these rodeos, they don't pay enough that you have to kind of stay to be able to be ahead. You had to be fast. Like you had to be in them top, 3 holes to where you made money. And so when you guys roped, when you came out here, like you guys were hungry. Like I always noticed that about y'all when you came out.
Yeah, it was, and everything was so much faster back over there. You didn't need just like I said, growing up, you needed transportation.
Noticed a lot of guys that use the rope.
Yeah, you had to use your rope. I mean, that was the steers were slower, older, barriers were shorter.
So what I mean by that is to where I remember, out west, bigger steers, longer starts, especially out west in California. They would stick it out there. So that was notorious for using your horse to be able to rope. And then when you guys back east, it was shorter scores, slower steers. You guys use more of your rope than the horse. It was just keep them flat, keep them on the ground, and use your horse. So that's what I noticed about you guys, especially when you guys got to the NFR. Y'all were comfortable.
Well, even like the building rodeos in Texas, I remember the first couple of times I went to San Antonio and San Angelo, and they are smaller buildings with shorter barriers, but the steers are strong and the barrier is not that short. You're not going to you can't float across there and catch. I mean, it's not there. It's not the same. You got to ride a little bit. You got to have a faster horse, and it was hard. I mean, the transition was.
Yeah. So when you came out of the IRAs, when did you start coming out west? When did you start making your way to Texas, getting out west and going to some of the bigger rodeos?
I had went a little bit in 2005.
Nikki Simmons?
Yeah. And then just a little bit, and then I went some in 2006 with Travis Graves. We went to.
That was kind of your first time branching out.
And then, but I had been to Denver and Odessa a time or two before that. San Antonio one time before that. Houston, made Houston one time. I won a rodeo in Florida, which qualified me to Houston. and got to go there. And then 2007, York Gill called, and he almost made the NFR in 06, so he had all the buildings made, and so I come out and wrote with him in 2006, and then I never went back. I wrote with him through the summer, and we did okay, and then ended up writing with Albach in the fall, and then 2008 I wrote with Monty.
So what did you feel like some of the biggest changes were coming from back east when you started coming out west? What did you notice the difference was that you had to change, or you had to evolve, or you had to kind of redevelop your craft?
It was the horsemanship part of it. I didn't know how to shake a horse's head down, flex him. I mean, I really didn't know nothing about a horse. I didn't know that you could use your horse to help you catch. That wasn't what we did. I think in 2007, I wanted to become a better. I wanted somebody to say, "Hey, that horse looked good," and that was the idea of I need to get better by being able to ride my horse better, and I also needed to not miss, because the guys that was winning was the guys that didn't miss. Kevin Stewart, I mean, I watched him all those years, and he never missed. Little horn, big horn. And he was always at the finals, and he made a good living. And I wanted to figure out how to catch. And Chad helped me a lot in 2007 with my fundamentals, and that was kind of the whole start of it. And plus, with the background of me knowing that I cannot go a week without winning something, or I'm gonna have to go back home.
Right.
With that mentality and finally learning how to ride a horse and catch was a game changer from coming from there to here.
Because I remember, so when did you come out here permanently, and what obstacles did you go through? I remember you shot horses. I remember you came out here, if I remember right. Remember you had a nice bay horse. I remember seeing you and Nicky Simmons, I think in 05 or 06. Remember the bay? He was a nice horse. And then when I remember right about that point in time, you just said, I'm in. And you moved out here. I think you had 2 bay horses maybe. Is that right?
I did.
I don't remember, maybe a truck and a stock trailer.
I had a living quarters trailer, a small living quarters trailer, and a truck and 2 horses, and that was in 2007. That was when I wrote with York, and the good horse foundered at Greeley, and he never recovered. Had to put him down, and then the other horse broke its neck, so I didn't have no horse, and I wanted to make a living. And I had some buddies that sent me some horses, and Kevin Daniels had let me borrow Slim to practice on. He was his practice horse, and
that was 2007 when Slim Shady made his presence known.
And so I went to riding him, and he was so stinking hard. He scored pretty good when I first got him, but would run smooth off, and that was a blessing, because now I had a horse that scored and run, and I just had to figure out how to get him healable. And it didn't take long, because he
and this was 2007?
2007. And he got good when I went with Al to the Northwest. I had that horse, and then Al had 2 heel horses. So when we practiced, I would ride his heel horse and practice some. And then he pretty much just rode the one horse the whole time. But that's when I think, because I only had one horse. And when you got one horse, you figure out a way. And if I'd have had other good horses, I don't think Slim I wouldn't have put the time in, the effort to bond with him. But boy, he was a blessing. That was the horse I've been needing.
Yeah.
And it worked out good. And I rode him for 10 years, 11 years.
So in 2007, 2008, I remember, how many horses did you have? Were you riding outside horses? I remember you were shoeing too. And then how many places would you go a day to go practice?
I had 2 practice horses. I had Slim, and then I had 2 practice horses. I had a horse I got off Corey Smothers, had one that I got off Paul Eves, and Chad had 30, of course. So the horses were plentiful. But them 2 practice horses, man, we would run. I could run 40, 50 a day on them. But I was just turning steers. I wasn't, just
getting reps.
Yeah, I was just roping fast. But they were really good. They were the 2 best practice horses I probably ever had, because they scored and made the same run, same routine. And it was cool, because I would get to go rope with Martin, then I'd go rope with Patrick, and then everybody else in between. But every day I would go to Martin's and Patrick's. Those are the 2 main places, and turn them steers is what I did.
I remember you as a healer's dream. You would show up with a trailer load of them, and they said that you had got it down to where how many steers could you run an hour?
It was
like 50 or something like that. You had enough of them rotated throughout there that now whether that was then or whether it was later, I just remember somebody said like you almost timed it to where you had enough people on them and move them around. You could run like 50 an hour. And I was like, that doesn't surprise me none.
We roped. I mean, and Chad was the same way. I mean, he, you know, when we'd go rope, we roped.
Because you moved in with Chad in 07, 08?
07, yeah, the fall of 07. We had a little barn apartment in Morgan Mill, and it had 3 stalls. So we had Cody, Stranger, and Slim. They had a stall, and then he had a bunch of continuous pipe panels that we tied up, and we had pins everywhere. And that was the funnest, probably some of the funnest parts of roping, because in the mornings we would load up a trailer load and we'd go to Al's because they were roping at the NFR that year, and I would go and help him, and I'd work the chute and learn so much by just watching them rope. And then in the afternoon we'd go back and swap horses out, and we'd go practice play all afternoon and rope and whatever. But that was some of the coolest watching I've ever seen in my life. It was the first time I'd ever been around. Al was phenomenal, because the first day I went to his house, me and York went and roped with him and Chad just a Sunday afternoon, and the effort he put into practice was, I'd never seen it. I mean, he had dummies, he had all kinds of steers, he had Bron was videoing everything he did. You know, it was a job, and I wanted to be around that so bad. Like that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like he actually had real fundamentals, and he knew what he was doing. He was perfecting his art. Yep. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just roping.
What was fun about Al is he was a philosopher for team roping wise. I mean, he was like a Aristotle in a way. I mean, he would break it down. Mm-hmm. You know, he would watch those runs, and he was deep. He was always in depth with how the run works and how to explain it. And I've done some clinics with him, and he does a good job of articulating what he says that you can actually see it. And I remember when I roped with him, I remember you telling me that story. And then a few years later, I got to rope with him. And that's when I started to quit shoeing for a living, because he was like, man, you're either in a rope for a living, or you're going to kind of be half in and half out. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to have to slow down shoeing, and I'm going to have to be all in. And he showed me what it was like to really rope for a living. Yeah,
he's the matriarch of team roping to me. There's nobody I'd rather talk to about, because he won't say the stuff that's always bothered me about my roping. He don't see it. He sees a bigger, broader, better picture of the right way, or the right way to think, not the piddly dumb stuff that I can come up with.
You know, he helped me out with so much, and I still carry it through to this day, even trying to learn all this other. I apply it more now than I did when I was roping, but even though I knew it was in the back of my head because he really helped me with it, I was real hard on myself. Real hard on myself. My dad was hard on me. I was hard on me. And when I roped with him, like I'd miss a couple steers, you know, I was feeling the pressure roping with Al Bach, and, you know, and I remember I missed one. I'm like, man, that won't happen again. I can't believe I did that. Just berating myself and talking bad about myself out loud, you know, dumbest thing ever. And, you know, that's really going to give your partner a lot of confidence, you know. But that was my habit. It was just like so mad at myself that like, and that was my way of saying like, I'm not taking this lightly. Like I'm going to work harder. I'm going to do this. And he said, man, you sure are hard on yourself. So I got to be. If I ain't, who's going to be? Well, that's one way to look at it. But he said, who's some of your best buddies out here that you spar with and rope with that you really look up to? I said, well, I really like Chad and Luke. I said, man, those guys, they're always nice. They're always, they work hard, but they're some of my good buddies. And Matt Funk, you know, those are guys I really enjoy being around. They're some of the guys I look up to out here. And he said, if Chad missed a steer like that, what would you tell him? I said, well, he ain't gonna miss a steer like that. He said, you don't think Chad Master never thrown a loop like that before? Well, he might, but I bet he don't do it twice. He said, what about Luke? If Luke missed one like that, would you tell that same thing you told yourself? Would you tell that to Luke? I said, hell no. He wouldn't even do something like that. He said, you don't think Luke Brown probably never thrown a loop like that? And I said, well, I mean, maybe. I don't know. But he said, well, what would you tell him? So you ain't going to miss twice? He said, well, what if you told yourself that? He said, what if you talked to yourself like you talked to some of the guys you looked up to out here? And I walked off. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to buy myself a beer. I've got a lot of apologizing. I've been mean to myself for a long dang time, but it made so much sense. It's like you're living inside yourself anyway. If you can't talk to yourself like you're your own best friend, you know, I mean, no one else is going to. You can't rely on someone else to bail you out, especially rodeoing, because Hell, everyone rodeo's got their own damn problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it going to be hard to try to get someone to feel sorry for you? You know, if I'd be like, you know what, Luke, you ain't missing two. I know that. Well, if I learn to talk to myself like that, and it really changed a lot of my perspective. And he was really good about stuff like that.
Yeah, he had told me one time too, the same thing. He had said I was nervous and I'd been missing. And he only wrote with me in 2007 because he only needed a little bit of money he had already had the finals made pretty much. So for him to take a chance on me in the fall of 2007.
Give you an opportunity too.
Right. So, but we got along so good, you know, so it was easy. But I had been missing some or whatever. And he said, before he run the next year, he said, how mad would you be right now if you just missed this cow like you did yesterday? I said, I'd be just as mad as I was. Well, he said, well, why don't you pretend like you had just missed him before you run this one? Oh, yeah. I turned that one. I was so mad when I got in the box. And I used that a lot.
Found fuel.
Yeah. Like
fuel.
I had to convince myself that I had a second chance before I even run that cow that day. And it was the whole vibe of, you know, like the nerves was gone, the anxiety. I was mad. It was just between me and myself, but I had a whole new feel for me running this cow, and that was, and still use it. You know, I still tell myself that quite frequently.
I just remember back then you worked so dang hard in 07 and 08 that you were literally, I remember just everyone telling me that like Luke's here and like you were the healer's dream because you come rope, you come turn the steers, and then it gives you an opportunity in front of Al, and then you get the opportunity to go rope with Al and learn so much. And then 2008, this is your year. This is when you get to put it all together.
Yeah, it was, and I was really lucky to get to rope with Monty Joe. I had been around him a little bit through the years and stuff and knew him. But for me to get to rope with Monty Joe, who never misses, that was just a perfect pipe dream. Because if I could go do my job, I'm going to get 2 feet. Surely I can make – and it wasn't about as much making NFR. It was just not going home. I wanted to make a living with my rope.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to survive. I wanted to, you know, not necessarily get rich or anything. I just wanted to rope. And if I can't win, I got to go home and go to work. And so that was a blessing. And when I tell you, we went all year in 2008 and we won. I mean, we won all the time. And we placed we won so many checks. I bet he didn't miss 5 steers all year. I did. I mean, I missed a lot, but
Monty was really good too at finding some guys back east and winning. And he was, I remember Frank when he cracked him out. And
Rogers.
He was also a guy that knew how to win. He was also, if there probably no one that knew how to make more money with the rope than Monty.
Yeah,
either using it or tearing it apart and braiding something up with it. He knew how to make money with that rope.
He loved to rope too. I mean, he loved roping. So we got along so well. I mean, I'd won some at Waco, one of the first rodeos of the year back then, counted for the following year. And I'd rope with Richard Durham there, and it was a 4-header. Me and him won like 6,000 or 7,000. That was the difference. I made the finals that year and Monty didn't. Mm-hmm. Like I went in 12th and he was 16th just because of that Waco deal. So, and then at the finals, Jade Corkill was the odd man out. So I got to rope with Jade at the finals. And
if I remember right, you turned every steer. Is that right?
I two-looped one.
Two-looped one.
And, but we placed
a lot of rounds.
6 or 7 rounds.
Yeah.
And never run a practice steer before the finals. He went home which he lived with us too, pretty much. And that was when he first moved to Texas. And so I was a part of that too. I mean, the beginning of his career. And he was amazing as he is today, but he was that good then or better. Yeah. Probably. He was amazing. So with him being our practice healer in 2008 and buddying with him and Chad, there was no way not to be somewhat successful.
Your path and my path was a lot the same in the fact of, shot horses, worked our way into it. I made it late. You made it late, as far as the NFR age-wise. And my path was different than yours in the fact of mine was probably more the horsemanship. My dad loved the horsemanship side of it. My opportunity was Tyler Magnus, which everything was through horsemanship. Learned a lot more about the horse, learned a lot more about setting up the run. And so I didn't rope as much as my practice sessions were like so focused on so many different things. And because back then it was, if you could be consistent, hit that barrier and turn them and finish good, that was a lot of money. And that was the NFR every year and a lot of money jackpotting. But after a while, the game started evolving. You know, you and Jade, Chad, a lot of different guys, Drieger started showing up. Then it started getting faster. Guys were getting more consistent being faster. And then for long, that running up there and not dropping a coil, or maybe just dropping a coil, wasn't quite even working at the jackpots. Like, I remember that little era. And I was still in Llano, because like Llano was, everything was structured. You know, Tyler would structure that practice session, slow it down, get them horses developed. T and Rich were kind of the same way. You know, Speedy, he was the one that roped, and he roped. But like, I grew up, you know, making sure everything's controlled and all that. Well, then for long, like, what I started noticing was I wasn't quite keeping up. And I remember coming up to Chad's one time, and I think Driggers was there, because I think he was roping with Jade. And then I think Paul Lees and Archie was there. And I think they bought like 25 head of Mexicans, and they're just going at them, going at them. And, you know, my thought process back then was I was a little more scarcity mindset. You know, the whole time I'm thinking, man, they're ruining their horses. Man, they're ruining their steers. You know, I was thinking, man, this stuff's got to last. You know, like that's kind of like how I grew up. Like, used stuff you buy, it's going to last, you know, forever, you know. And what I started watching, these guys were like making plays. I mean, bombing out. And then for long, they're playing pig. You know, the heeler had to come from the head box, and the header had to come from the heel box, and they just cross and make runs. And then for long, like now, Jade and Paul, now you got a rope on the left-hand side of your horse's neck. And then the last one, it was just crazy. Like, the header had to turn the steer in the middle of the arena, and the heeler came from the strip and shoot. Like, it was just getting to where. But what I'd noticed was, I think somewhere Jade, steer set up, and he had to reach on the other side of his horse's neck, and he roped 2 feet 1 rodeo. And I seen Driggers pulling off shots at a rodeo that were so easy that he'd been practicing at home. And I moved. That's when I moved, because I realized I'm going to have to learn how to do that and still stay under control.
Yeah.
And it was that young, like what you guys were doing, you guys were roping. You guys were making runs. Like, your practice sessions was real. And where mine, I was almost practicing at the jackpots and the rodeos, where you were actually practicing at home. And that really changed the way I started thinking about things.
You know, the best I've ever, which, you know, I didn't get to see Speed and Rich. That was before I got out here. But in my whole life, I think the best team roping I've ever seen was Chad and Jay. But I lived there, so I've seen it. But their run, they could go be 4 flat or 12 flat, and it never looked any different. It was just different momentum. They made so many. They had the way they approached the cow and the way they made their run, and they were very successful doing it too, everywhere. I mean, they won with other people, but they won with themselves, and that was when I got to be around that changed a little bit of perspective of, it is a team. I don't have to do this on my own. It is a team sport. We can help each other, and they proved it so well. But I mean, it's 2 of the best ropers of all times roping together, so of course it's going to be good. But yeah, that little error right there, when what you're talking about was good.
That was one of my other learning curves. That was one of the things where that was another evolve that I had to make. You know, we both grew up roping in the 80s, professionally roping in the 90s. You know, back then it was catch them, control it and catch, control it and catch. Well, then that was when that era started, and all of a sudden now they started getting consistent, being fast. And it was after Speedy. You know, more guys were studying Speedy. And when I started watching practice, I'd never seen that. And I'd seen a lot, you know, at that point, but I'd never seen that. And I was watching it at the rodeos and at the ropings, and I was like, yeah, going to have to change. That was one of my other little curves in my career where I knew that was going to have to adjust.
It's been cool to even see till today, like how it's changed. You know, I mean, it's definitely changed. I don't know that, I don't believe that people are more talented today than they've ever been. I mean, I've seen Frank Graves do a phenomenal thing, you know, but people ride better horses, better horsemanship, and the people that ride the best horses, like Driggers, who is the best header with the best horses, is unbeatable.
The two need each other.
Yeah, I mean,
need each other.
How that has evolved to make it, you know. But I've seen shots in my career that it's amazing, but we didn't have all this social media back then, but people have been phenomenal for years. I mean, just you get to see it now. It's so cool to get on your phone and get to see Dustin's great shot at Rapid City or wherever. You know, you didn't never get to see it 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, we always had to hear about it.
Yeah, you didn't get to see every run.
Because I think that's where the dissection has been coming. You know, getting to see, like, that's what it was for me. You know, when I started really structuring my reaching and really trying, I really liked Clay Smith. I really liked how well he'd get that first swing, get ahead of him, and then when he would reach, it was effortless. So effortless. Well, I remember I watched a run, I think that was when I was ERA rodeoing, so I got kicked out of the PRCA, and so he was just, I liked the way he freaking got ahead of him, and it was just easy for him. And then that gray horse on Marty. And on social media, I would save that run, and I would just watch that run, and then I'd go try to emulate it at home. And then, I got my phone out and I'm watching like how he got the swing, because my swing was too low because I was low from running all the way in there. His hand was higher because it's got to travel, it's going to drop. And so I just watched like where his hand was. Like, it was above his ear. Mine's under my ear, I'd start watching my run and then his run. And I think that's where I think the technology has helped so many people evolve and elevate. And it's so fast now and so good to watch. And they're coming from everywhere, these kids.
Yeah, if you want to learn the team rope, it's easy. It's easy to do it today. There's so much stuff to know the right and wrongs, from
I agree.
Trevor's horsemanship to, everything. You could lock yourself in a room for a month, come out and be dang near ready to make the NFR just by watching your phone.
Yeah. So 2009, is that when you started getting a chance to rope with Marty?
Yeah. I had roped with Ryan Moats through the winter, and we did good. And I started roping with Martin in the spring, and
so Martin Lucero, that's another philosopher.
Yeah.
More quiet, but definitely seemed like that. Every time I was around that guy, he may not say much, but when he did, it was something. Like I remember I always had to pay attention because when he talked real quiet, he didn't say much. When he did, like, hey, there was a lot to that right there. A lot of wisdom. Yeah. A lot of wisdom with that guy.
Yeah, he was, I would beg him I'd be in a rut and I would, like, what do you think? He'd never say a word. He would not. Like little things, like can't win without a time, stuff like that. He would say little things, but he would never get in depth of what I wanted out of it. I wanted an answer.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to fix me right now. Never did, but he had, we did good all year and we had a good, we did good at Omaha that year. I think we won 20 or 25,000 at Omaha, but he had unofficialed Omaha. He had called and entered us in a rodeo, and he called and unofficialed it and said, and she said, he said, I want to unofficial myself. And she said, unofficial. And he said, yes, that's official. And that was it. And so she changed it back to official. But he was meaning like, it's official that I want unofficial. Anyway, long story short, he didn't get to count Omaha. So 10th round comes around. I'm 20-something thousand ahead of him. He needs to place in the round. I need to stop the clock, and I miss him.
So tell me about 2009, 10th round. I know this is going to, I struggle even to even talk about it, but 10th round, you have a chance to win the world, to, if I remembered right, shatter the average record on 10.
I think we had to be 11.
Everything. You had to be 11.
Me and Chad went and they drew the steers. There's 2 steers you didn't want. One of them walked. Derek Begay had one around on him, walking. One steer walked out and tried to stop, and one steer run hard to the right with his head down to the right. And we knew both the numbers, and we're the last 2 people. He has a chance, and I have a chance to win it. And neither one of those steers have been drawn. He draws the walker, and I draw the runner. And I was so nervous, and it was so nerve-wracking back there. I knew that Martin needed a place in the round to win the world.
How far down were you?
I think I went maybe second to last. I think Chad was last, maybe. Chad might have been last, and I was second to last. But I couldn't keep up with the times. I didn't know what was placing. I knew Colin and Nick, we were guaranteed second average if we missed. So I really didn't have nothing to lose except I need to probably win 4th or 5th in the round. But I couldn't keep up with it. So with that, when I'm back in the box, I got a terrible steer, wants to run right, drop his head. I can't break the barrier, and I can't miss. You
thinking about a lot of things not to do.
Everything you couldn't do. And the one thing you couldn't do on slam was pull on him. Like, you couldn't get him tight because then he would hesitate leaving. You had to just trust him, and he wouldn't leave as long as you didn't jack with him. Anyway, I'm nervous. I pull on him. I'm late, running 3/4 away. His head's down to the right. I try to make it fit. I spaghetti the horns. Can't get it off. Sick. Go out back. And I get sick behind the tent. And then finally I was like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. You just won 90,000 or whatever, 110,000. You're back here, you're stupid. Who cares about a gold buckle? You ain't here because of a gold buckle. You're here so you don't have to get a job. This is dumb. I'm so dumb. And I come around the tent and I just walk to the car and I'm like, man, I was more mad at myself now for being upset for missing, which I know it's a pipe dream or whatever, but shoot, man, this is dumb. And I get to the car and here's Lacey and Mom and Daddy just bawling, I'm like, hey, golly, guys. They were just sad for me, but
I was sad for you.
That day on, from when that happened, I mean, because I was in, I don't know, I had a good feeling that I was going to get the deal done, and then when it didn't happen, I said, I will never live my life for a gold buckle. This is dumb. I have a great life. I'm getting to do what I want to do. This gold buckle is not going to make me happy. And I still feel that way today. I could have one on right now. But what I do have is a house and a barn, some good horses and a good family, and get to rope still for a living. And that's what it's about to me. I mean,
so what I thought was so impressive was the very next year in 2010, you back in the box, not with a chance for the world title, a small chance, but you damn sure had a chance. But then that 10th round to win the average in 2010, the very next year, 365 days later, then what?
We won the average and barely missed winning the world. But I'm telling you, it wasn't about.
What do you think changed mentally?
I didn't care if I won that thing or not. It didn't.
You wouldn't, did you?
I wanted to go turn all 10 steers and make enough money to pay my credit cards off and go again. That was total goal. It wasn't. And two, I feel like every year throughout the whole years, like when Clay Trine was the best header that year, Caleb Driggers was the best header that year, Chad Masters, whoever was the best header all year deserved to win the gold buckle. I didn't go in number one. You know what I mean? I made a living with the rest of the top 15. I mean, if one year that I really headed good and would have had a year like Driggers had, I might have been said, hey, look, you probably do deserve, or Clay Trine, and he dominated so bad, you probably do deserve it. But I've never felt that I've been dominated enough to deserve it. I just want my part and go
Well,
home.
I know one thing. You practiced hard enough and made enough good runs when you got there. It looked just like how you practice. And, that hard work. I mean, you were a threat. Like I said, you were a threat in the rounds. You were a threat in the average. And it showed when the guy looks at your stats. It's phenomenal. And that was all hard work. No, and when people say, like, they love to rope, and they always compare, well, yeah, but you love like Luke. Because you was hard to get there beforehand, and you was hard to leave after. You would make a lot of runs, but you enjoyed it. I was mentally exhausted. I'm trying to get my horses working. I'm doing all that. And you're just over there laughing and having fun. I'm like, I've got to figure out how to do that. Because I remember some of our sparring sessions. This is what's funny when I come over here and come home now. And, I'd watch Cadence and Jackie. They'd be over there sparring and, kind of going back and forth. And I'm like, that ain't sparring. It's like a pillow fight. Like, where's the barrier? Like, I remember we were over there at Patrick Smith's and we had the neck rope out, had the barrier out. And then when we were getting ready for jackpots, we put the electric eye up. I think you had an electric eye or somebody had electric eye. We had a timer. And like when we sparred. And there were 3 head.
That's right.
And I remembered it took me a minute to beat you. It took me a while. The one thing I do remember when I was thinking about this last night, when we would spar, like it was real. And I don't know if I won 2 in a row. Because what I remembered was I would win one and I'd be like, oh, finally. I'd get comfortable. You came back pissed, and I could tell it in your roping. I roped comfortable like it was going to be there, and you roped like you're not going to lose 2. And I learned a lot from that because, like, it doesn't make you shit if you win. You still got to press on the next one. You got to press on the next one. To me, that defined your career. You always pressed. You never backed up. You never got comfortable. You always stayed at it. And that was something I learned a lot from our practice sessions.
That's probably the most amazing thing of rodeo that I've seen my whole life is Charlie and Logan. They had a great week this week they had a great 4th of July. They might not win a check till Guyman, or till Dodge City. Everybody's like that. They'll have a good week, won't see them for 2 weeks. Then they'll get mad and have, there's been very few teams that could go the Driggers and Junior. Of course, Clay Smith does good, but there's been very few teams that can capitalize and stay pretty consistent through the whole summer. Most guys that have the best years win at the best times of the year, but then they can't keep going. And to me, that's the struggle of making a living with a rope is can you have a good week this week and do it again next?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Your mind don't let you do it.
And one of the things too, I remember you told me was before we were headed out for the summer and you're running. Man, I remember asking you, I said, are you scared to get peaked out? And because I was running them, but I was running them pretty controlled. It felt good. I wasn't messing with it. I kind of run a few, and you're like, I might run 35, and my 35 might take 6-7 hours. Like it would take forever. Get them scoring, get them working, and you might run 35 in 34 minutes. You know what I mean? Like you would have it down. But I remember one thing you told me that really resonated. He said, it's not for now. Like my run feels good. You told me, he says, I want this in my subconscious. I want to be trained that I can make this run 2 months from now when I hadn't got to practice in 2 months. I want this in a habit before I leave. Because I know from Reno till a certain time, there is no practice, and this run has to be there. And that resonated. I was like, man, because I remember one time we were roping it at Patrick's, and I got fried in 2009 or 19. I was making so many runs trying to keep up with you, and we were roping fast. Well, I got roping so fast, I was blanking out. Mm-hmm. I was anticipating. I was going too fast, too much. But it resonated the next year. But one of the things I remember asking you, too, in 2019, I was like, how do you be 3? Because there's so many one-headers coming up, so many one-headers that were coming. I mean, 3 was kind of a common. And I barely was 3 a couple times maybe at that point in my life. And I said, show me how to be 3. And you're like, all right, when you did, you adjusted your rope. You adjusted where you were at in the box, and you come back there, and you got your swing off, nodded, and freaking came out. And I think we clocked it, and I think it was like 3.8 or something. I forgot, but it was 3. And I was like, this guy knows how to do it. Like, it's one thing, like for me, I was just throwing fast. I was wanting to be 3, but I didn't have a plan. So I didn't know how to plan to be 3. And I watched how it was a play in your playbook. It was like, all right, 4th and 25. We ain't running it up the middle. We're scattering some wide receivers out here. We're coming from the shotgun. And we got to get the ball down the freaking field. And so it's a play. And when I watched you just freaking make that play, I'm like, all right, there were some adjustments. And I watched when you started your swing. And then I came back home and slowed down a little bit and started working on that. And then I was also going to speedies a little bit because every swing that I had was built to reach. Well, then when I tried to catch again, I couldn't because I was working on going too fast. I was out of balance. And then I remember 2020, kind of came together. I remember it came together later that fall with Logan. Started being 3 a couple times that fall. And then 2020, I was 3 more times I've never been in my life. Mm-hmm. But I had to stretch myself, get around guys that knew how to do it and knew how to grind at it. And that helped me. I think the next year I was 3, 5 times, I think in 2020, something like that. And that was more than I'd been 3 in my whole career. But it takes that to be able to get around those guys that freaking do it and do it and do it.
Well, I think that's more so been my downfall the last couple of years is I am good about, or I was comfortable with being 3, but not using my horse at all. And that I wanted to be able to put a run together for myself to where I could use my horse more to be 3 more times or be 4 every time. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's guys doing it. I mean, Triggers is phenomenal. And for me to be able to put the steer in a better spot, to heel him faster, get finished faster, and use my rope, it's been a struggle. So, well,
when I remember when I first started seeing you really started using your horse was when you got Cowboy.
He made it easy.
That was what I resonated with. I'm like, that was old school. That was to have that horse that can run. You're going to use him. You're winning the averages and the big scores. You know, the BFI. You know, things like that. And he was awesome. That's when I started seeing you really kind of evolve. With having Slim that you could be fast on, and then Cowboy was one you learned how to use and use your horse.
Yeah, he was awesome. He could run so fast. He's the fastest horse I'll ever own for sure. But he had no cow to him whatsoever. I mean, he would run over top of him. And I remember when I first got him and didn't even know if I wanted him, but I bought him anyway. I kept telling Brad said, well, we fix him. And me and him went to my arena, and I had 10 steers. And I know for sure we run 40 on him that day and 40 the next. And he run every steer over top of me. I mean, I'd let him out a little bit, and he would just run him straight to the middle of the left fence. And I'd turn him loose, and this sucker would run over Brad, over the cow. But the second day, he started reading the cow.
seeing it.
He started finding him. He would stay to the left of him. And from that day on, he was, it didn't matter. He was good. He stayed in his lane, but he was tough at first.
Now, what year did you win the BFI on him?
2017.
And then was you guys high call?
Yeah.
So being in a situation where you're so comfortable being fast, now you're in a situation now where you're being consistent and you got a shot to win the BFI, which at our age era, that's the biggest of all of them. The George Strait was there for a while, but now it's the BFI because it was that was the roping. When you're high call at the BFI, what's your thought process? What are you focused on? Because not only did you win it, you won it. You guys made an exclamation point on that run.
Jack.
Because that's a little bit different than high call at the NFR because it's so fast and it's 24 hours before your next one, 24 hours for your next one. BFI, jackpot is a little bit easier. It's a few hours. It's still a long time like BFI. But when you're backing in that thing, that's a huge notch. What was your focus?
Well, he was, when he run, he was so strong and big. He didn't ride big, like he wasn't like long stride or nothing, but he was so strong. You couldn't reach on him hardly. Like if you did, you almost had to let him duck and then reach. So when every time I've ever rode him, I rode him at the finals twice, and that was 18 and 9 or 19 and 20. Even then, my swing was different. I let him put the rope on. I never tried to rope. If I ever tried to rope the horns on him, it didn't go good. But if I would swing aggressive and just let him put my loop on, I would never. So there was no. All I had to do was make sure I got the barrier and then let him put my rope on for me. Like right horn, left him from.
So that's your focus when you backed in there.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Wasn't worried about a thing. It felt like that was one of the easiest moments of my life. And I no blackness, no nervousness. Just let him out a little bit extra and then wait till I could put him on him and swap him in Jake's loop, and it was over. Because
to me, that's when a guy has confidence in his horse. That's when you're mounted and he is going to do the work for you.
Yeah.
That's where a confidence in the horse. I've seen so many guys' career like, well, does a horse really dictate, what your career does? Well, certain people, when they've lost that horse, look and see how far they dropped in the standings. Yeah, a horse has a big part of it. It's amazing when a horse is so good at their job, how much easier roping is. I think Jet Johnson told me one time, he said, sometimes you don't know what a good horse is until you got on a good one.
Yeah.
And I remember getting on Pook's yellow horse one time, Calhoun. I remember being able to get on Jason Stewart's horse. He had a really good one too. And then Trevor would let me on some of his. Chad would let me on some of his. And I was like, man, it's amazing when you get that feel. And then when you got Cowboy, that's when I seen you just become dynamic. Like there wasn't anything that steer could do that you weren't going to put yourself in a chance to win money. Yeah, it was cool to watch.
It was fun. And he didn't score great either. Like he wasn't easy. I mean, he was easy, but he wasn't like he just stood there. I remember coming home from California and telling Lacey that I would not leave home until my horse scored like Trevor's and Charlie's. Like I wanted them to sit still, and I was going to turn them loose. Wasn't no more of this me timing them and me tricking them and all that redneck stuff I'd always done. I said, I'm going to learn. I think I broke 7 barriers in a row when I got it. When I got Cowboy standing there, he wouldn't wiggle. But it wasn't me, man. Right. I couldn't relax enough and leave him alone. I would panic and leave early. And thank goodness, because he wouldn't have took it long anyway. But he had a feel for him, like you'd have to rock him forward a little bit, and then whenever you felt like he was rocked off his rear a little bit and nod, and he'd just lay back about 6 inches, and he was gone.
Shoot it, yeah. Yeah, he was a phenomenal athlete. Man, that's been a heck of a career. So who you roping with now, and what horses you got? Who you roping with this year, and what horses you got?
I'm roping with Travis Graves. We did good at Denver, and we're doing good at Fort Worth. We made the wild card and get to go back there this week, and we've been practicing a little bit. Pretty excited about that. It's
kind of who you started with.
Yeah.
In a way, isn't it, when you first came out here?
Well, we roped the first time I went to the BFI, it was with Travis, and we were 4th callback and won 5th. So, I mean, we've always roped good together. We second partnered for a little while and roped good, but never rodeoed with him except for that little bit, and worked out this year to rope with him. And
I follow politics quite a bit. If everyone knows, and probably a little bit too much, but they're calling for cyber attacks. A lot of people are calling for all that stuff, and I got to thinking, you guys would be one of the few guys that would actually know how to get to a rodeo without an iPhone.
Yeah,
you guys know what you would. Yeah, you would know what a Rand McNally map is. You guys could lead the charge to the next rodeo if that was to ever happen.
That's
I love it.
When
it'd be fun to talk to you two about that and watch some other kids like, you did what to enter?
That's what Lacey said the other day. She's like, Libby has no clue what a map is, and when me and her and Martin went 2009 and 10, and then we had a map. We had a map. That's how you did it.
Yeah,
you couldn't even use iPhones then. I mean, that ain't been but.
I stuck Cadence. I put her in my old truck. It was a 5-speed, and put a Rand McNally map up there. And she had a junior event in Waco. Sat her in there. Said, "All right, here's what we're going to do." She's like, "Dad, what is this?" And then we'd already drove it around, before this. But the first time I got her in that 5-speed, she goes, "Dad, like what? Why is there 2 brakes?" I'm like, no, it's a clutch. But what is this thing that's sticking out of the middle of this truck? Oh, that stick, And so we got to learn how to do that. I said, all right, now we're going to learn how multitasking works here. Now you got to learn how to drive this 5-speed, and now you got to open this map. We got to figure out where Waco is. She's like, how the heck do I do? I'm like, a table of contents. Where's Waco? Where's Texas? Where's Waco? She figured it out. She got the map out and figured out how. She's like, Dad, why do you keep doing this to me? I said, well, what happens if your phone dies? I'll go and get another one.
Yeah, exactly.
So wow, you're going to need a map to figure out where you're at. So it was pretty funny, but yeah, it's some of those survival skills ain't bad to have. That's funny.
No, but yeah. And then I have a couple of different horses. I got 2 horses, a Chad Justas at the house that are really, really nice. I've been going to Northside every week and going to jackpots, riding those horses. And I got the gray that I've rode for a couple of years and kind of honestly feel like after a lot of struggle that I'm halfway getting with him.
Mm-hmm. He looks easy.
He's so easy. He's so easy, and he's such a nice horse.
Mm-hmm. Willing.
Oh, yeah. It's just nothing like, Slim Cowboy, they were hard-headed. Yeah. They were like me, and he's you send him one way, he's going. They go their way, and then you try to figure out how to get back. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a different feel. It's been hard. But we're actually getting around, and
that bay looked pretty good that I watched you ride a little bit last fall on social media. I was watching. You had another bay, didn't you?
Yeah.
I liked him.
Yeah, he's a really good horse. He come from Brandon Webb. Brandon trained him and pretty much, and he definitely has his places he's good at.
Good.
It's easy, and then my nephew trained a mare that my dad and mom bought for him, and I rode her quite a bit last year too. She's young, but really she's a nice horse. She's real kind and easy, and can run, but she just turned 8, so I have been trying to keep her out of the fire as much as I can. But there's some horses around there that's really good. So
how many years you got left, you think? Are you 49 now or 50?
49.
49. When's 50?
August.
Yeah. You got some time. So what much longer you think you're going to keep sticking it to these young Thundercats?
Well, I ain't done that, but I don't know. I'm not willing to quit working at it yet, and Libby or Lacey ain't changed their attitude about going yet, so I don't know. Maybe this will be the best year ever. I don't know. I'm good with it. I'm good with it either way, but as long as Libby and Lacey and Daddy, my dad, they're all in, but if they get the feeling wanting to do something else, then I'll probably do something else. But Lacey loves going. She loves it. She loves the road.
She's been a trooper right by your side.
She loves every bit of it. She loves the travel. She loves
Libby Lane. There's no bigger fan.
No, she's the same way. Wants to know which friends are going to be there that night, and she loves it all too. And you know how much I love it. So
yeah,
probably not going nowhere for a couple of years.
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so proud of your career. So proud of the man you become. Such a great family man. It's I love seeing you and Big Luke. Big Luke had a good year out there at the NFR too, didn't he?
He
scratched pretty good at the World Series. Yeah, that was a good year.
Yeah.
Good year last year, for both of you.
It worked out really good.
It's cool when the team roping has evolved into for some people's families. When you both do good, and it's a culture for sure, and I love it. And man, I'm proud because when did you make your first NFR? Was you 34? Was I right on that? In there in that vicinity?
30, 33 maybe, yeah, somewhere.
That's a long time to stay at it and persevere, and then make it that many times and still be one of the guys. That's Rocky Balboa stuff. When you watch the movie, it resonates that he worked hard, and then it wasn't easy for him, but then ate it, and you've done it that way. It was cool to see.
It's never been a job. It's always been, and I've worked too. I mean, I've worked. I run equipment. I've always run equipment. Poured concrete. Shod horses. I mean, I owned a dump truck for a couple of years. I mean, I've done it all. I'm more thankful of that too. Like Daddy was even talking about, the other night about, we had a flat one time and had the old spring axles, not the torsion axles, now the old spring axles, and we had a tire come off and bearing go out, and we blocked up one side of the spring and come. I've done it. It's just crazy the stuff that I've got to experience, and I've always loved stuff. I've been braiding a little bit and just little stuff. I like stuff like that is helpful in life. Built a swing the other day. Just stuff.
Get to be a dad.
Yeah. It's fun to look back on. I didn't ever need a computer, and I wasn't stuck in the house. And we try to get Libby to stay off her phone and be more,
see the world, see what life, see outside,
be able to do stuff for yourself, and it's pretty cool.
Well, man, I'm proud of you, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck this year. And thanks for coming on, man.
Well, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, buddy.